I was asked a question this week: how would you maintain a work-life balance, and how would you go about supporting staff in achieving their work-life balance? Hello everybody, and welcome back to another video. Yes, I know it's been a long time since I've uploaded anything or even actually contributed to any form of social media, and there is a very good reason for that. You know when you haven't contributed to your YouTube channel for a while, when YouTube itself comes and tells you you've not contributed a video for a long time. And it's probably been about 3 weeks, I think, since I've actually posted anything. And in that time, I want to say a huge thank you, because I know before Christmas I talked about actually going from double digits to triple figures, and I would be tremendously happy and grateful for that. And it happened fantastically. Me not posting anything, more viewers. So I want to take this opportunity to say thank you for coming along on this journey, for subscribing and committing to it with me. I'm very appreciative. So thank you ever so much for that. So why the absence? That is the question. It's then from the title of this video, a work-life balance. And it has a lot to do with that. My incognito actions are a lot to do with that. So what is a work-life balance? Now, I had my own ideas about what it was, but I actually went and did a little bit of research to try and find a definition, and this is the best one that I came up with. So work-life balance is a term used for the idea that you need time for both work and for other aspects of life, whether those are family-related or personal interests. So what do I need? Now, when we research this, one of the first things that comes up is Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Now, we hear this mentioned quite a lot in educational settings and in schools, but what is it? Well, Maslow's hierarchy of needs is a concept to do with humans fulfilling their needs and the specific order in which these take place in. So before anything else can be considered, basic physiological needs have to be met. Those are such things as food, water, shelter. After that, people need to feel safe, feel loved, and belong to a group. This then builds into the idea of self-esteem, cognitive needs, and aesthetic needs. At the very top of the pyramid is self-actualization, or your ability to fulfill your potential as a human being. So what does that all mean for us? Well, having a job and working actually meets most of the bottom parts of the pyramid. So let's think about it. You go to work, you earn a salary. That salary then allows you to go and buy food, it allows you to provide for shelter, and it gives you that feeling of safety. Going to work also actually allows you to feel like you're part of a group and helps a lot with self-esteem. So it covers a lot of those fundamental basics of the needs at the bottom of the pyramid. It's when we start to get to the top of the pyramid that things start to get a little bit trickier, and this real idea of and concept of a work-life balance starts to come into it. Now, as you start to move up the pyramid, work alone isn't going to meet those needs. So lifestyle choices and leisure time become really important. Slightly different look, I suppose, but having gone through that, what's my answer to the actual question? What is a work-life balance, and how would I go about supporting members of staff to achieve one? Skadoosh. A little bit of research online goes a long way. I found this 5-step cycle and I kind of like it. So let's go through it. Step 1, pause and ponder. What are you prioritizing? What is it that's currently making you feel stressed or dissatisfied with your job? From there, step 2, pay attention to your emotions. Examine how that situation is actually making you feel and ask yourself, do I feel energized, fulfilled, satisfied? Do I love what I am doing? Or on the other hand, do I feel angry, resentful, or sad? Step 3 is reprioritize. You've got your cognitive and emotional awareness now, and that's going to give you the tools that you need to put things into perspective and determine how your priorities need to be adjusted. Just ask yourself, what am I willing to sacrifice and for how long? If you've been prioritizing work over your family, for example, why is it that you feel that it's important to prioritize life in that way? Is it necessary, or is it really inevitable? And do you have any regrets already? Or what will you regret in the future if you continue along that current path? Step 4, consider your alternatives. Now, before jumping into solutions, first reflect on the aspects of your work and life that could be different in order to better align with your priorities. Are there components of your job that you would like to see changed? And how much time would you like to spend with your family or on hobbies? And finally, step 5 is to implement those changes. Once you've recognized your priorities and you've carefully considered the options that could help you improve, it's time to take action. Now, that could mean a very public change and something that explicitly shifts your colleagues' expectations of you, such as taking a new role that's designed to be less time demanding or allows for a slightly compressed work week. Or you can take a private change in which you informally change your work patterns without necessarily attempting to change your colleagues' expectations. Most importantly with this, it's not a one-time activity, but a cycle of continuous reevaluation and improvement. Try that. So, brought you out into the garden. It is 6:10 on a Friday evening. Now, I started making this video a week ago, and there's snippets of footage in there from weeks prior to that. So I think that goes some way in showing you about work-life balance, and that you're never going to get it right. It can't always be right. Sometimes you just have to prioritize things because there's deadlines, it needs to be done. It's just teaching life. It's not ideal, but I understand, and I think the majority of teachers understand, that there are times that do come through that. That being said, probably the reason I actually haven't done this is because of the book that I've been writing, and I've had the deadlines to meet for that. But I brought you outside just to change the scenery, as it were, and to discuss and reflect on my experience of working through these stages and how my opinion and how my views have changed actually. So, first thing that I have found actually, and I think it's quite probably the most important thing moving forward, is identify the hats that you wear throughout your life. So me, for example, I have a teacher hat, I have a leader hat, I then have dad hat, husband hat, and then there's my own hat. And what I've come to realise is you actually have to stop and reflect to identify, well, what hat am I wearing at this moment in time? And actually it's then a really useful process, because when you reflect on this week as a whole, which I'm going to do with you now, you then start to think and see which hat have I worn the most, which hat am I wearing the most, and am I happy with that? So teacher hat is one that just has to be. It is job, it's work. But actually it's more about teacher hat time and identifying the times where you want to have your teacher hat on. There's other times where it's like, right, I've got to have my leader hat on, and that's when it comes to things like meetings, delegating information out to the department, and that's actually a really important one. But it's also being able to identify the difference between the two of them. What is my teacher hat versus what is my leader, my leadership hat? And obviously then there's times when you want to do that. So for me, even though I might be working at home through certain things, so it's unescapable for a teacher, like planning and marking, there's going to be other times at home where it's like, okay, I need to have my leadership hat on to delegate information out, or to do other parts that are going to benefit the department as a whole, whether that's then writing appraisals, performance management, whether it's action planning. There's those things, and for me, they're inescapable. What you have to do with that is then plan out those times, block off time, and that's actually the thing I've taken from this week. how important it is to block time so that I get what is dad time or family time, and I block that into my week, what is then going to be trying to be husband time. That's not always the easiest thing because my wife also works a very busy time, but you then have to communicate and put that time aside. What often happens with these things is that people forget about your own personal hat. What is my hat? And they don't make time for their own personal interests or hobbies or things like this, that they enjoy and can take a lot from and be creative and feel fulfilled from. I think what often happens is that you end up just wearing your teacher hat for too long. So when you come home, especially at the moment, it's like, I've got to plan this lesson, I've got to mark this, and you always constantly feel like you're wearing that one hat, and these other parts just kind of get forgotten about. That's the challenge. And I know it is for me. And so, as you've seen throughout the video, I've tried to show you some of the things that we do in the time we block off. So it's always like Friday mornings, or it's a trip out. It's something that we specifically make that time for and that effort for. Me personally, what I make my time for is things like going to play rugby or going to the gym, and then it's things like this. And at the moment, I think teachers, there's a kind of a very grey area for education in terms of timing wise, away from school, what are you doing with it? And so people ask, what books are you reading? In terms of whose podcasts you're listening to, what YouTube videos are you watching, in terms of that self-development. And I think there's a kind of fine line between what is a personal self-development, in other words, something that's completely away from education, so like learning how to make videos, taking photos, going to the gym, art, painting, just reading a good book, or something like learning a language. Those types of things, fulfillment, development, external, versus when you're constantly on Twitter and someone's providing with research or evidence, or you're reading a book that is going to benefit you professionally. And there's a balance there between that top area of the pyramid about self-fulfillment and living a better life and development. It's that fine line between, what is personal self-development versus professional self-development. And so I think a lot of the time that's lost. I know for me, at the moment, it can be lost. A lot of the things that I read, what I would class as sort of my personal time, could also be considered as, but that's development side for work, rather than personal development. It's a real fine line, and I think that's probably, your own self-discussion and something you would have moving forward with this. But that's been my experience of it, that's been my take on it. And I think, as you can see, if you've got to the end of this video, it's been a busy 4 weeks. And what I've learned from this is it's not perfect. And that's why that cycle is always a reflective process to make you and help you identify what your priorities are for the week ahead and where you're going to block off your time to have all those different hats that you want to wear and feel fulfilled in what you do, not just identify as a teacher, but be much more than that. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. I'd love to hear in terms of what you do to ensure a healthy work-life balance, or even if it's just some advice or questions or queries regarding how I do mine or anything else along those lines. You can leave those in the comments below. It is actually the weekend, so I've managed to achieve something. Thank you. There's a lot of thank yous in this. Stay safe, enjoy your weekend, and I will see you in the next video very soon.